Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Beat Live, Chiefs Training Camp Edition. We're coming to you from the campus of Missouri Western State University in St. Joe Mo, and we are here to talk Chiefs with you. Please send us your questions and comments, and our panel of experts, which include beat writers Herbie Teope and Jesse Newell and columnist Sam McDowell, will answer them to the best of their ability. And before we get in the conversation, let's thank our presenting sponsor, First Federal. And we'll let you know that we're going to be here same time every day during training camp. So just let's talk about what you want to talk about. Send us your questions and comments. All right, for Herbie and Jesse, they have been here since the get-go, since last Friday. They've been here for every day of training camp, but today was a little bit different. The fans who are here today, season ticket holders, and the veterans were here as well. Up until now, it's just been quarterbacks and rookies. Today, it was full squad. And we've got a lot of observations about today, about who was lining up where and who was hurt and who wasn't hurt. But before we talk about that, I want to get just some impressions from our guys who were here today. I'll start it off by saying the first thing I noticed walking from the press center where we are over to the fields, it's about a quarter-mile walk or so. The line to get in to the facility, to the practice facility today, was as long as I've ever seen it. I don't know if there was a holdup or whatever at the gate, but it was a long line to get in. And this was about a half an hour before the 9:15 start. But Herbie, you've been coming to these things for a while. It was a different energy out there today, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that Mark Donovan, the team president, said on Monday was back to normal, and he mentioned that at least 2 or 3 times, and that's exactly what you saw here. There were a lot of fans. According to the Chiefs, more than 3,000 Chiefs season ticket members were out here, and that number is sure to go up on Thursday when it's the first full practice that's open to the general public. But you're right, the traffic out here, the amount of fans, you did get a sense of normalcy, what you come to expect from a Chiefs training camp pre-COVID.
Your first one, Jesse. What'd you see?
Well, first off, I want to congratulate Sam McDowell for discovering South America, it looks like. Is that a very crude map that he drew in the background? So a nice background for him. I also want to promise the people out there, I'm pretty sure we ran this last week and I was wearing this exact same shirt. The Star does pay me enough to wear multiple shirts to these places. So I don't just bring one, but I promise tomorrow will be a different color. It was. I think I mentioned to these guys, it was crazy. This was different today. Only media basically and team personnel out here the previous days, and today it really felt like something. Players coming off the practice facility, and everybody asking for autographs. Andy Reid coming down in a golf cart, everybody cheering for him, yelling for him. So it does take on a different feel when you get to this day of particular training camp. But as far as impressions, I'm sure we'll get to this. But we can talk about the left tackle and who was lining up there first. We could talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was there when we didn't expect him to be after he was placed very temporarily on the PUP list yesterday. But I thought Juju Smith-Schuster was kind of the show of today. We've talked a lot this offseason about which receiver is going to step up for the Chiefs. Is it going to be Sky Moore? Is it going to be McCole Hardman? Is it going to be MVS? And I thought Smith-Schuster today was really the highlight and made a lot of different catches. And not only that, a lot of catches in different places than potentially he did in previous seasons with Pittsburgh. So that'll be fascinating to track over time. But just day one, many more to come. And as Herbie said, even more fans to come here in future days.
And we'll hear from Juju Smith-Schuster later in the show, along with safety Justin Reid. So, Sam, you've been coming up here for years as well. There was just a totally different feel about today, and there's a difference really between those first 4 or 5 days here, and then starting now for the rest of the practice session.
Yeah, I love training camp. It's the one time a season that the Chiefs can't really hide anything from you. We see it all with our own eyes. So, I recall, and I know Herbie does as well, us consistently watching Juan Thornhill last year take snaps with the 2s and 3s and then asking Andy Reid about it and him telling us not to read anything into it. And then guess who's not starting for the first 5 weeks of the season last year. So this is when we learn the most about what they feel about their roster. I think what we learned today to that extent is they put Roderick Johnson at left tackle, and that tells me that, okay, they know Orlando Brown's coming at some point. They might not know when he's coming, but they know he's coming at some point. They're not planning to go into week one without Orlando Brown, because Roderick Johnson would not be the starter at left tackle if they did not have Orlando Brown. So, again, we can learn what they feel about how they would line up with that Orlando Brown. But today told me they're planning to have Orlando Brown. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, we'll get to a little bit more about the left tackle and a couple other positions where that were a little eye-opening, I thought, for Chiefs. And you think about it, their Chiefs are replacing several standout players, starters from last year. So today was kind of the first official look at new faces and old places for the Chiefs. But let's go to some injuries, and there was a couple of developments on that front today too, wasn't there, Herbie? The media was all in a panic yesterday, and Chiefs fans with the news that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was put on the PUP list, and there he was after just about all the other players had come down the walkway. There was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 25, making his way to the practice field. Give us an update on CEH.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct on the panic mode. My goodness, social media blew up. Oh, he's hurt again. No, but he's not hurt. Apparently, as Andy Reid said, he had to pass a test, which leads me to believe Tuesday, when Chiefs players arrived Monday night, they had to go through a conditioning test on Tuesday. So when Andy Reid says he had to complete the test, that's what makes me to believe that he was held back because he didn't do something with the conditioning test. But he checked out okay. You're right. He walked down the field with Jerick McKinnon, appeared to practice with no limitations, worked exclusively with the first team offense. So Edwards-Helaire is good to go.
Okay, and who was what's the Frank Clark update? There was kind of that was sort of the early buzz in practices. Where was Frank Clark? And your mind wanders, but we found out after practice why Frank Clark wasn't there today.
Yeah, and Andy Reid said he was ill and had to take a test, but Clark did make his way to the practice field midway through the session. He was observed on the sideline, working with a trainer, going through stretching, and then he eventually joined his defensive teammates on the sideline. However, he did not go through any drills, probably because he joined the session late.
Very good. Okay, let's get right to it. Sam already alluded to it, the left tackle position. Nobody expected Orlando Brown Jr. to be here, and our expectations were met. He was not here today. So, Sam, I know you've got a piece coming up about Orlando Brown Jr. Let's just break down that position and what happens if Orlando Brown misses all of or part of training camp?
Well, he's going to be behind. It's sort of the equivalent of taking one of the senior cut days, and then you get a bunch of homework, and you still got to do the work at some point. He is putting his body in not a great position to open the season, and I think you'd make the obvious argument that there's no spot that's more physical than the trenches of a football game. And, I did talk to professional trainers, guys that work with NFL players, who said, absolutely, you should be concerned about how his body is going to hold up once he does get back. One of the examples that was presented to me was he has not played a physical down of football, because he skipped the summer as well, with a helmet on since the AFC Championship game. And he said the person I spoke to said, first time he does that for a day, his neck is going to hurt like crazy. Things like soft tissue injuries come into play. Herbie knows this better than me because he's been coming to these camps longer than me. The most common injuries we see up here are soft tissue injuries. So it's not like he enters a new realm with the potential of getting injured, but he's giving himself less time to recover if that possibility does occur. He's going to be pushed up against week one whenever he's out here. Let's face it, he's entering his second full season as a left tackle. This is not a veteran left tackle. entering his second season playing with these guys. Andy Reid even acknowledged today they've got some new things they're working on. He's not out here for that. Creed Humphrey acknowledged 2 days ago that, the communication with the offensive line he thought was the key to its cohesiveness last year. It's one of the reasons it was ranked as the, fourth or fifth best line, depending on which metric you want to go by. All that stuff is gone with Orlando Brown. So I think, and this is one of the things I wrote, but the biggest victim of Orlando Brown missing days is Orlando Brown.
Yeah, and what about just maybe briefly, let's touch on the contract situation. They were mostly far apart on the guaranteed money. And Jesse, is this just are the Chiefs playing a little bit of hardball here with Orlando Brown? And as Sam said, it would absolutely be in both sides' best interest if Orlando Brown made it to camp pretty soon. But is this a situation where we're going to see Orlando Brown give? Because I don't see the Chiefs giving in on this.
Well, it's an interesting scenario now because the Chiefs really can't give anymore. There's nothing to negotiate. You can't negotiate till after the year. So Orlando Brown can show his displeasure by not showing up, but if he wants to make money this year, he's going to have to play on that franchise tag. So, in terms of could they have given more or given in or whatever? We could debate whether $1 million more guaranteed dollars per year would be worth it to make him happy, to make Patrick Mahomes happy, to have this whole thing be kumbaya and come into training camp and have everybody moving in the same direction. But I think Sam has brought up this point quite accurately and quite well throughout the entire course of this offseason. This whole offseason has been about propping open the window for the Chiefs for the next 5 to 7 years, rather than just thinking short term and making a panic move or pinning yourself into a corner to make a move you don't necessarily have to make. So with that, they stood their line with Orlando Brown. They made him what they believe was a fair offer based off of his production so far. Orlando Brown didn't like that. But again, now the leverage shifts back to the Chiefs because either Orlando Brown plays on the tag or he doesn't make any money at all. So again, it's beyond the point where these two sides can come together and have something different happen based on this season. So now it's just a matter of when Orlando Brown shows up and when everybody, like I said, can start moving in the same direction to start the 2022 season.
Okay, that's plenty of off-field observations of the Chiefs today. Let's talk about what we saw on the field, and let's just reveal our first federal player of the day. We're going to do this throughout training camp. We have a player of the day sponsored by First Federal. That player today is Juju Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver. Had a terrific day, made a great first impression for the fans here. So let's before we offer observations of Juju Smith-Schuster, let's hear what he had to say in the media tent just a couple hours ago.
You said earlier this offseason maybe you weren't able to run all the routes you wanted to a season ago. Can you just talk about what you meant by that and kind of the opportunity you see this year?
Yeah, this offense, man, oh my gosh, the amount of routes that I ran, I think I ran more routes here than my previous offense, and being all over the field. And like I said, being able to play inside, outside, and that's just for everybody. You see MVS playing inside, outside. You see Miko playing inside, outside. Sky. You have so many guys playing different positions, which is so nice, because we can move guys around. And like I said, today was just like the first taste of, what I got to show.
Why is that good for you?
Just like I said, versatile. Being able to spread the ball around, being able to move guys all around the field, and not being able to stay in one spot and get double team and being covered on one side, then moving to the other side or inside.
Juju, you've kind of seen a lot of success inside. How much do you want to show maybe that I can also be this legitimate outside receiver?
At the end of the day, it's going to show just because of the offense I'm in right now. Being able to be outside, like I said, like that's just all showing. I didn't have to come in here ask for anything. The playbook is meant for everyone to know everybody's position and just play.
Juju, a lot of guys have talked about always being ready for the ball. Like Patrick is a guy that likes to scramble. Guys have talked about him extending plays and being ready. How much have you guys worked on that aspect of it in the offseason?
Man, we basically have a period just for that.
Really?
Scramble drill, versus, whether you run across the field. And I would say, one thing about with Pat, that I've caught on to notice is that, he can run the other way and you can run the opposite way, and he's going to throw it the opposite way for you to go get the ball. And he kind of did that today. So, like you said, man, like just to know, where Pat's at, where the ball's going to be at, and, always be ready, always be open.
Now, those opposite movement and throwing skills, we've seen a lot of from Patrick Mahomes over the years. But Juju Smith-Schuster also said Ben Roethlisberger had the same ability. I would submit nobody does it as well as Patrick Mahomes. So before I ask Jesse about Juju Smith-Schuster, Herbie, what were some of the plays that you saw him make today that stuck out?
Well, the diving catch, and I believe, if anything, Jesse actually wrote about that or he included it in this piece. Look, I think when we saw in mandatory minicamp and OTAs, you heard Juju Smith-Schuster saying they like to spread out the ball. It was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who commanded our attention throughout June. Now we get here and you hear him talking about the versatility of the offense, or you hear him talking about how they're going to spread it around. Now it's his turn to shine. So, it wouldn't surprise me going forward that we see other wide receivers like Sky Moore and even Hardman have their days as well. But Juju's day was today. He certainly put on a show.
What'd you see, Jesse? I know you wrote about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one play, you guys can search for it on social media if you want to see it, or check out our story in the Kansas City Star. We've got it embedded in there if you want to take a look. But the big catch that Juju Smith-Schuster made against Trent McDuffie is on what we call a burst corner route. So it's kind of similar to Wasp a little bit for all those fans that have made that play famous. But it's sort of like you're trying to turn somebody to the inside and then you burst to the outside if you're the outside receiver. And I just thought it was a really good encapsulation. Not only was it a great play by Juju Smith-Schuster, but he talked this offseason and was pretty open about when he was with Pittsburgh, he didn't get to run all the routes that he wanted to with Pittsburgh. And so he was pretty honest in that clip. By the way, some great question asking early in that clip. I don't know who that was.
Outstanding. That was outstanding.
Outstanding journalism, whoever that was. But, I think that really is a telltale sign, though, from the Chiefs. And this is where it's different. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with Pittsburgh trying to cater to a guy's strength. And obviously, we know what Juju can do over the middle and as a slot receiver, all those sorts of things. But this is going to be different for MVS and for Juju with the Chiefs because those guys are going to be inside. They're going to be outside. They're going to run all sorts of different routes. And that burst corner route I talked about, that's not something Juju Smith-Schuster ran very much with Pittsburgh. They didn't run many corner routes at all. It was mostly goes and outs and then hitches and slants and things over the middle that really what the coaching staff at Pittsburgh thought catered to his skill set. So this is going to be a fascinating thing to watch moving forward, but it sure seems like Juju Smith-Schuster is excited about this new opportunity because he's running all the routes from all the positions, and that's something different than what he did before when really I think Pittsburgh was kind of trying to laser focus on what he could do the best. And the Chiefs are saying, hey, we want you to be more versatile and be less predictable, and I think he's kind of embracing that challenge.
Hey, Larry, we might take you up on that. Larry says for $15.99 monthly, I'll check out the diving catches for the Star. Well, we may put you on a retainer, Larry. Thanks for that. Okay, hey, let's take a break and hear from our sponsor, First Federal.
When I bought my first home, I was searching for listings and negotiating all on my own. Now I'm back in the housing market and I could not imagine doing that again. But then I found First Federal Bank of Kansas City's expert loan advisors at ffbkc.com. They were kind, knowledgeable, and available 24/7. My loan advisor answered my questions and helped me feel confident all the way through closing. I trust First Federal Bank because they understand banking is personal. Apply today for a home loan at ffbkc.com/homes. First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
We're back on Sports Beat Live, talking Chiefs from training camp in St. Joseph, Missouri, with beat writers Jesse Newell and Herbie Teope and columnist Sam McDowell. And Brian says he heard a lot of good things about several rookies. Who do you think will make the most impact? Herbie, I'm going to go to you here because we're going to switch the sides of the ball and go to the defense. And for the first time, we can officially say what you've seen at some positions at training camp. And I wanted to start on the defensive side because I know I keep being impressed by one particular cornerback who played his college football at Fayetteville State.
Yeah, I've kind of mentioned it. It would not surprise me if you insert the name. We've been saying that all through mandatory minicamp and OTAs, but now the best kept secret is out of the bag. Look, Joshua Williams has been working with the ones. And I think a lot of that has to do because Rashad Fenton has been injured. He's not in there to start off when they're in the 4-3 base. That's L'Jarius Sneed. And of course, obviously the first round pick, Trent McDuffie. But when they go to the nickel, Joshua Williams is getting the first call up. Now, and Andy Reid kind of mentioned, hey, look, it's early. I have to see more. And even safety Justin Reid said, we got to see what happens when the pads come on. And that's going to be key. But as of right now, when you see this guy, he's got the length. He's perfect for press man coverage. He's a ball hawk. He knocked away a pass today in team drills when he was defending against McCall Hardman. The guy's got all the skill set. It's clear the Chiefs like him.
Sam, that's a big ask, isn't it, to go from NCAA Division II to starting in the NFL if that's what happens. I know Andy Reid seemed a little bit cautious with his praise of Joshua Williams today, but I would not be surprised if he's out there as a starter. And it also speaks to the investment the Chiefs made during the draft at that position.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big ask, but particularly one at cornerback. I mean, we see really good NFL cornerbacks struggle their rookie year. And also, it's relevant that the Chiefs don't have a lot of experience in their secondary. I think this makes it even more glaring that Tyrann Mathieu is not back there, because he's a guy that, a guy like Joshua Williams, I think right now would be leaning a lot on. And, Justin Reid commented today that he's really comfortable with moving guys around in the secondary, telling them where to be. But he's learning this playbook too. And he also talked about just this is the deepest playbook he's ever been a part of. So I just think that combination, I think early in the season, maybe it's just early in preseason, maybe it's just early in training camp, but we're going to see, at least out here on the field in St. Joe, where guys might not always be in the right spot early on. When you've got that combination of it's not just, a D2 player learning how to defend the talent that he's probably never in his life seen before, but it's also getting used to an NFL playbook with not a lot of experience in this particular playbook around him.
Real quick, Blair, too, I just wanted to mention this about Joshua Williams. I wrote about him a couple of days ago. You talk about going from Division II all the way up to the NFL, potentially a starter in the nickel package. How about going from Walmart and Domino's to a start of the NFL, because he was delivering pizzas a couple of years ago. What's so interesting is Division II, his particular team did not play his junior season. So he sat out when he's watching all these D1 athletes who are potentially going pro, and he's not playing, and they are playing. So not only that, we're talking a year out of football 2 years ago where he had to sit out the whole year he was training. He was security for Walmart. He was delivering pizzas, but to have this sort of monumental rise, that's a pretty impressive story if he's able to make it and kind of continue to ascend the way he has.
Absolutely a guy to keep your eye on in training camps.
Well, sorry, Blair. I was just going to say there was, Herbie made a really good point about the pads, which those of us who have been at training camp with Herbie, he will make every hour until the pads do come on. He'll remind us that the pads are not on. But the reason it's really important is there was a player last year in the secondary that we all thought was going to get some run, and it was Devin Key. And then when the pads did come on, we saw him slowly trickle down the depth chart, and he didn't end up making even the initial 53. But he opened alongside Tyrann Mathieu last year before the pads came on. So it is an important thing to mention that these padded practices, which I think Herbie's got the exact date, maybe I think Chanel told you guys when the pads will come on, but those are going to be significantly more important, especially for a guy that, they're going to want to play, some press coverage.
Okay, another player that we got to talk to today was safety Justin Reid, first-year player for the Chiefs, and he was asked about Joshua Williams, among other things. Let's hear from Chief safety Justin Reid.
You tend to have a front row seat now for L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie and even Joshua Williams. It's kind of like the grizzled veteran in the back there.
Yeah.
What your thought process on those, especially those two rookies that are playing cornerback?
Yeah. Well, LJ is essentially the vet in the room at the corner position, and he's done a great job bringing Trent and Joshua and all the rest of the rookie corners and young guys coming into the system, bringing them along and making sure they're getting adjusted to the system, because the playbook that we have here is heavy. You know what I mean? And I played in 4 different defensive systems, and this is definitely one of the deepest playbooks defensively that we have. But the young guys have been doing a great job, taking it in stride, listening to the older guys, being learners and not being combative, being open to coaching, both from coaches and from older veterans. So they've been coming along well. We've been putting a lot on their plate, and they're up to the challenge for it.
A lot of the young guys in the past have talked about, and I don't want to bring him up, but Tyrann Mathieu, how he was able to put guys in their position on the back end. How comfortable are you with doing that, men that you're learning as well?
Yeah, I mean that's my strong point. I feel like that's the reason why they brought me in is being a field general on the back end, being able to see the whole picture. Not only just put guys in positions, but like sometimes you just go out there and play football, mistakes happen. But having the awareness to be able to see when something's a little bit off and be the eraser on the back end to make sure that either we get them on the ground or just to fix mistakes where most people don't even notice that there was a mistake on the field.
We talked to 3 players today. In addition to Justin Reed, there was Trey Smith, and as you heard earlier, Juju Smith-Schuster. I enjoyed all of them today. I thought they were all pretty revealing, and not coincidentally, 2 of them are newcomers to the Chiefs, and then one is in his second year. So just getting to know the new players is fun. Michael writes that a lot of new players could equal a slow start against a tough schedule. I guess that's right. Absolutely tough schedule. A lot of new players on this team as well. But anyway, Justin Reed, we'll get into something he said I thought was really interesting, a heavy playbook on the defense. And so when do we get to hear from Steve Spagnuolo, Herbie? Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
Yeah, but it should be this week. It's either Thursday or Friday, but I do know we get the coordinators this week.
Okay, I want to get him to talk about the heavy playbook on the defensive side. I thought that was interesting. So
yeah, that's a Sam topic, Blair. Hand the baton to Sam because he loves this topic.
I do love the topic because, when I talked to Tyrann Mathieu in the offseason, I didn't include this in my story, but he mentioned how difficult Spagnuolo's playbook was. And he said, I think they're going to have trouble running all the stuff we ran last year. And I agree with him because of the inexperience I just mentioned. Really Juan Thornhill and L'Jarius Sneed are the only guys that have a comfort level with that playbook. One of the questions I asked Justin Reed today was what percentage of the playbook do you run on any particular day? And he led off by saying that they ran a lot today because it was the first day of camp. And then that number was 15%. So I think what you're going to see is the Chiefs are going to try and incorporate it all in training camp. And then they're just going to have – Spagnuolo's going to have a tough job in figuring out how much of this stuff can I actually run in week 1. And maybe it's a thing where they run some of it in week 1 and then a little bit more in week 2, more in week 3. But I really don't think you're going to see the full playbook in play for week 1, everything that they were running last year.
If anything, it's gonna mirror what they did in 2019. If you remember Steve Spagnuolo's first year replacing Bob Sutton, and it took the Chiefs defense until like midway through the season before he was comfortable enough to go ahead and give them more because they were also learning as a group. And as you have all these new pieces this year, it wouldn't surprise me if they went that route again.
Okay, I think it's an interesting topic that we'll explore in a bigger way on another show, of which there are going to be many. We'll be here for the next 3 weeks or so, about the same time every day, about 2:30. Every day the Chiefs practice, we will be here on Sports Beat Live, along with Jesse Newell, Herbie Tiope, Sam McDowell, on some days, Vahe Gregorian. We'll talk Chiefs with you. Thanks to these guys and to producer Monty Davis for putting together today's show. Thanks to First Federal for their sponsorship. And we will talk to you again on Thursday at 2:30 p.m.